Across the league, we were talking about small sample sizes. Is there any particular player that you would buy right now if you're a fantasy player, and then one that you should sell right now, like you were saying, maybe a small sample guy?
The buy, I want to say Max Muncy, but I'm a little concerned about the elbow. I don't know if so. You talk about barrel rate a lot in baseball. I don't know if your listeners are familiar, but the short explanation of that is a barrel is a ball hit above 97 miles per hour at a certain angle range. And as you hit it harder and harder, the angle range expands. So it's easier to be classified as that. So it's basically just the most well hit batted balls. And his barrel rate is fine. And his strikeout rate is fine. And his walk rate is way up. So everything kind of looks the same, but the numbers aren't falling in. And that's the kind of profile to look for a buy low, like guys that are hitting the ball really hard. But the elbow thing with him last year, maybe that gives me a little bit of pause. But that's more general advice to look for high barrel rates, low strikeout rates, but bad box score results. And then a sell high, I guess you could say, I mean, probably nobody's going to be a better option. I was going to say Taylor Ward here. The Angels is just absolutely crushing. I think he's one of the top 5. He was number one. He was the number one fantasy hitter for a while, but he's missed almost a week now with an illness or something like that. But he's a guy that, good minor league hitter, but nothing fantastic. He was never a top prospect. He's not like a 22-year-old kid. And all of a sudden he comes out here and has 6 weeks and just tears the cover off the ball, hitting an absurd. I can pull up the number here in 1 second. I mean, the guy's hitting
like 340, right? Or something like that.
Yeah, he's in 370 right now by my mark. He's got a 713 slugging percentage, so that's well above like the 450. 450 is like a good slugging percentage, and he's up at 713. 9 homers, and everything checks out. I mean, all the numbers look good, but it's just like, is this guy really all of a sudden the best hitter in the league? I doubt it. And you probably won't get a huge return, but he's someone that you'd be willing to trade just for that reasoning. Like guys that kind of come out of nowhere to dominate, it's better to sell them early on in the year.
The new Eric Thames.
There you go. Oh my God. Yeah, I remember that guy. That was fun here.
We are talking to Rotoballer Fantasy Baseball second DFS writer, John Anderson. What is going on with the Atlanta Braves? I mean, this is a team that won the World Series last year. Yes, they lost Freddie Freeman. He goes to the Dodgers. Everybody was like going crazy when he decided to part ways and go and play for the Dodgers, one of the more talented teams in the National League. They've played a little bit better. This rotation has been horrible. They're not hitting. I mean, this infield, which was one of the best power infields in baseball last year, has been one of the worst infields in all of baseball this year. What's going on with them, John?
I think it's the pitching, like you said. Fried is good. He's an ace. I think it's fair to say. And Kyle Wright has been kind of the breakout early pitcher of the year, been very good. A little bit worse in his last few compared to the beginning. But then Charlie Morton, Ian Anderson, and whoever else they've been throwing out there trying to figure out that 5th spot have been a disaster. They really were hoping that Morton would have one more year. I mean, the guy's, 39?
He's an old man who can pitch in the playoffs.
He'll turn 39 this fall. So that has to end at some point, and maybe it has. And the other thing is, they missed Acuna for a couple weeks, but they got him back and things were looking good. But now he's hurt again. Another thing, and it just seems like he'll kind of struggle for health this year. But the main surprising thing is that they have the league's top strikeout rate. I mean, 26%. They are the highest strikeout rate in the league, as I said, hitting 234. And I mean, the home runs are there, 56. That's near the top of the league. So they're doing that, but maybe they're just not timely. I mean, maybe they've hit a lot of solo home runs or things like that. Adam Duvall hasn't done it for them. He was a big boost for them last year. They lost Rosario. They did not lose Rosario. They lost Soler.
Yeah. But they lost Rosario.
And Jock Peterson they lost too.
I mean, Rosario's not playing.
He's now on the Giants, Ricky against the Mets.
Right. Yeah, they did lose Rosario in that way.
Yes.
And Acuna doesn't seem like he's not going to be the MVP guy he usually is this year with all these injuries he's dealing with. And then Freeman for Olsen seemed like more or less an even swap.
Yeah.
And Olsen's been great, but who knows? Maybe there's some intangible thing. The pitching's just not deep, and if Morton doesn't get going, they're going to have a problem there, and they need to improve that strikeout rate.
So I'm a Mets fan, so they're dealing with a lot of injuries right now, especially in their starting rotation. Are you concerned with the state of the Mets right now, even though they're doing well in the record-wise, with the starting pitching in particular, even with a bullpen that isn't overly deep? What do you think about that?
A lot of depth there, at least, right? Like they kind of they seem to be expecting this deGrom thing, and rightfully so. So they went out and added Scherzer, obviously, but that now he's gone for 6 weeks or something. But even now, even with those two, I mean, you could argue the two top pitchers in the league on the Mets, and they're not here for probably all of June. And we'll see with deGrom. It's hard to say that. It's hard to predict that he'll even make 5 starts this year with how much struggle he's had. But even then, McGill, Carrasco, Bassett, Taijuan Walker, David Peterson. I mean, there are plenty of teams that have worse rotations than that. So they're okay. And then the upside is that Scherzer and deGrom come back and they just absolutely dominate for July, August, September. The offense also very deep. I mean, they just went out and they were just like, screw all these injuries. We're just going to load up and have backups. And Lindor seems like he's having the year, the kind of comeback player of the year type of year. Although he was never bad, but he just wasn't like a superstar the last couple seasons, and he's looking like that again. And then Alonso, and then a lot of nice pieces like Nimmo, McNeil, Canna. These guys kind of just fit in really nice. So a lot of depth there, and that's a good lesson for other teams. But not a lot of other teams have the money to spend like your GM is willing to do. So that's exciting. It's probably a good time to be a Mets fan.
About time after we have to deal with the Wilpons forever.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
What's this guy's name? What's his name?
Uncle Stevie.
Cohen?
Steve Cohen.
Uncle Steve.
Yeah, he's the man.
Uncle
He's the man.
Stevie, man.
Oh, yeah.
He's been... Any Met fan should be jumping for joy. This guy spends $800 million in his first 2 years. Why not spend $1 billion?
And they got rid of Robinson Cano.
Man, I mean, now you're hearing stories about Soto. So why don't we get into that? I mean, there are stories coming out that the Nationals might be intrigued or interested in possibly trading Soto at the trade deadline. I do believe they have control of him for the next 3 years. What are your thoughts to Juan Soto? I mean, obviously he's one of the top 3 players in baseball. That lineup is one of the worst lineups in baseball, and he's still hitting. Do they trade him at the trade deadline, or do they wait and decide if because obviously he was offered a $350 million contract in the offseason for 13 years. He would not take it. There are stories coming out from obviously his agent, and we all know who his agent is, that he wants $500 million. Do they trade him in the offseason? And if they do, who does he go to?
Well, it's about the if you're the Nationals, you're not going to get another Juan Soto in return. I mean, the return is going to be massive. You're going to get someone's top 5 prospects or something like that. But almost surely none of them are going to do anything like Juan Soto. I mean, that guy's generational talent. And what is he, 24?
23.
So you have 10 years. And even the worst, like I'm a Pirate guy, right? I grew up in Pittsburgh. Even I am not going to sit here and say Pirates have no chance for the next 10 years. That's just ridiculous. And the Nationals have some money to spend as well, a pretty good market there. So, I mean, no doubt this isn't like a 10-year thing where, well, we need 10 years to get better. Of course not. They could be right there in the heat winning another World Series in the next 3 years. So to me, it's pretty obvious that you want to keep Soto. You don't really want to, he's not really a trade option like that unless you don't think that he has any business staying there. If he gets his 2 years and he walks, then of course you want to trade him, right? If there's no way he'll sign an extension, or you're just absolutely not willing to pay that $500 million he wants or whatever the number is, then sure, it's always better to trade these guys earlier rather than later because they're a bit more valuable now with the 2 years of control before you have to give them the big contract. So you can probably get a huge haul from a team like the Mariners, someone like that, Mets, sure, like a team trying to win right now that maybe won't be interested in extending him and giving him that massive contract. But even if you don't want to do that, you get this year and next year and maybe the next. I don't know if you have the contract details, but so that's working in the Nationals' favor. A trade right now will net you more of a return than next year, but it's all dependent on if you think the number one priority would be to keep him. But if you don't think that's even a possibility, then it's probably best to trade him now.
So what you think will be the market for him either for this season or for the off season too? Because the main teams in it were the Blue Jays and Padres for a while, but now more teams have been climbing in. Do you think it'll be one ultimate bidding war for that kind of thing? Or do you think so many teams will just drop out just because the Nationals asking price might be way too high?
Oh, I mean, only a few teams would even be in contention. There are certainly teams that don't even have what it takes. Like even if they wanted to give it, they don't have it. There's probably teams out there that cannot offer an offer that the Nationals would take just because it will take 5 top prospects, something insane like that. Like, I don't know if one team has 5 of the top 100 MLB prospects, but I would imagine
the
that's
Dodgers
the return. Yeah, maybe not. Yeah, I mean, something like that. And that would, I mean, you should just stop watching baseball if Juan Soto ends up on the Dodgers this year, right?
Might as well just add Strasburg in the trade. It'll be a whole reunion of Nationals over there.
Right. So, yeah, it's going to be tough. I don't imagine it happens because I don't think any team really wants to do that, even for Soto for 2 years, unless they have the eye of keeping him for the long haul. And maybe that is the Dodgers, because I think Trey Turner's he's up for free agent this offseason, so maybe they're willing to let him go. And they have some other aging guys that maybe they want to replenish. I mean, there's no problems in Dodger land, but they would be probably the team that you would think would have the money and the will to sign him for that insane record-breaking deal that will inevitably happen if he stays healthy.
Well, we also know the Mets will open up their pockets. Uncle Stevie's willing to open up his pockets for $800 million. Why not add another $500? It's not going to burn a hole in his pocket.
But then they have all these outforders that are going to be pissed that they're not playing anymore, right? I mean, they have like 6 outfielders that can play.
They platoon all the time. Yeah.
What does Steve Cohen care about? He's got the second or third best player in baseball. So what does he care about? I mean, as long as they got a star that's going to put fannies in his seats and he's going to put money in his pockets, he don't give a crap about that. It's all about money and winning to this man. And he's the George Steinbrenner of these days. And I expect him to continue spending money until this team finally wins, even though it never worked for George. So
I feel for the Mets, though, man. I mean, you have to respect an owner that will spend the money. Everybody likes that. Mm-hmm. And they just keep getting really screwed over with these injuries. And maybe it's something, I mean, there's a lot of these rumors about how training staff is just awful, and that's probably
But they've
not
switched
really
it 3
fair.
times, too, so that's something else, too.
It's probably just a string of bad luck. And deGrom clearly, I mean, that guy's a closer in a couple of years. There's just no way. This guy's elbow can't do it. I mean, it's too bad. It's too bad for all of us, because the numbers he was going to put up last year would have been just insane to see.
A lot of people believe this is Jacob deGrom's career is over. A lot of people.
I think I'm on that board. There's no doubt. I mean, all the stuff his elbow's gone through and the shoulder and all these problems he's had. Pitching is a freaking hard thing to do.
Yeah.
You just can't do that without a fully healthy elbow, and he should probably. I mean, they're not going to put him in a bullpen role. That's the last thing they want to do. They're going to ride this out and try it for the next couple of years. But yeah. I mean, I'll take the over on 10 Jacob deGrom saves in 2025 if you're putting a bet out there.